Good. Okay. We'll convene the meeting. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming. My name is Richard Stewart. I'm the Mayor of Coquitlam. And I want to open the meeting actually with a very quick comment that's not in the agenda, because the year was 1902. And in 1902, many things happened, but one of the things that happened was this woman was born. She lives in Coquitlam. Her name is Trudy, and I get the opportunity to attend her. You're going to have to go to the flash drive. It's not there. Okay. Okay. Anyway, there's a flash drive there somewhere. But so in 1902, Trudy Marshall was born. She currently lives in one of our facilities here in Coquitlam. I was invited to every one of her birthdays since she was very young, 107, and now she's 111. And at 111, she is the fourth oldest Canadian with us, and it's an absolutely delightful thing that we're able to today wish Trudy Marshall happy birthday, happy 111 years. Next year we're going to have to do something special for her on the 112th birthday, I think, but this is quite remarkable that she's the fourth oldest Canadian alive today, and absolutely amazing. So I did want to acknowledge that milestone. Thank you all. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. First item on this evening's agenda concerns the minutes of the public budget meeting held on Thursday, October 3rd. Recommendation to approve those minutes.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 2 is the minutes of the regular council meeting held on Monday, October 7th. Recommendation to approve.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Asmussen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3 is the minutes of the Coquitlam Evergreen Line Public Art Task Force meeting of Saturday, September 14th. Recommendation to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Secor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is the minutes of the Multiculturalism Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, September 18th. Recommendation to receive.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 is the minutes of the Sports Council meeting held on Wednesday, September 25th. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Secor. The Chair and Vice Chair, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
And our last set of minutes is the minutes of the Maillardville Commercial and Cultural Revitalization Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, October 3rd. Recommendation to receive.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Our first report of staff this evening concerns a heritage revitalization agreement for 1121 to 1123 and 1135 Brunette Avenue, 209 and 213 Therrien Street, and 208 Begin Street to allow development of 66 apartments and 14 townhouse units and protection and revitalization of the Red House in Maillardville. This is bylaws number 4370 and 4372. The three-part staff recommendations that Council give first reading to City of Coquitlam Heritage Revitalization Agreement Authorization Bylaw 4370. Council give first reading to City of Coquitlam Heritage Designation Bylaw 4372, and that both these bylaws be referred to public hearing.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Secor. Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, I'm going to support moving this forward. I think it's a tremendous project and a very key part of Maillardville, and it looks like it has a lot of good potential to it. And another reason to move it forward is I was at the site today, and I'm not sure if that poor building can stand a heavy snowfall if it happens to be a heavy snowfall this winter. We need to move quickly on this, I think. So definitely want to see this progress through our bylaw readings, and so definitely in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Asmussen.
Well, thank you. I'm going to support this bylaw over this application. I do like the front of the building where they're restoring and the amount of work that has gone into the detailed analysis and to bring the original building back to its original look and to be used as an amenity building. And I know Councillor Hodge has been involved with this through the heritage and his passion for heritage in this area. But what I do like is the public area in front, in the park area, in the green space that will be abutting Brunette Avenue to look at that. And so I think these proponents have done a very good job on the buildings, the heritage of the area, and making it look that way. And I guess down the road a little ways, we could maybe continue the look of this thing by maybe hopefully one day is getting rid of a clubhouse that's along that street and would really be improved. Thank you.
That clubhouse has heritage value too. Councillor Hodge.
Well, certainly this is something that has come up at my committee, and I don't think a meeting goes by when somebody from the Maillardville committee doesn't ask what the plans are for that property. So I'm certainly pleased to see this coming forward so that the public can have a chance to comment on it. And as Councillor Asmunsen mentioned, when it comes to heritage and protecting the heritage buildings in Maillardville, I think this has the potential to be another win for us. We've had several recently, and I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with development that protects and recognizes and pays tribute to the history of some of the area, and certainly to the buildings in that area. And I look forward to hearing what the public has to say on this.
Thank you. I too will support this going to public hearing. There aren't that many left, and we've got some heritage still in Maillardville. Some of it very bright, and some of it buildings that were not considered to be important buildings in their origin, and this actually would have been one of them. It was not a particularly important building in its origin, but it's pretty important to us now. It's right next to what was Trev's back then, and so I've seen it all my life as simply a small rental building, and now after it suffered the tragedy a year ago, 14 months ago, of a fire that virtually destroyed it. We're so pleased that the fire department did what they did to be able to salvage the portions of it that have been salvaged. At the time, I thought, well, that's it. The building's been wiped out. But there are obviously, when reading through the report, it looks like we're going to be able to salvage this building and recreate this heritage and restore this heritage to Maillardville. It is the only heritage building on that side of Brunette, going up for several blocks from our city centre. So it's for me vitally important, and I'm so pleased that we've been able to do it. And as Councillor Hodge said, we have achieving some success in that regard of late, and this is good news. I'm going to go to Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And just very briefly, staff are really excited about this project too. Obviously share Council's views on the opportunities to protect and give new life to these heritage buildings, particularly one in this case we just about lost. And I don't often do this, but I think the applicant and property owner really needs to be recognized and commended for their efforts. They work very cooperatively with staff. There's been property acquisition they've done, so there was no orphan lots left behind. And they put together what we feel is a really a worthwhile project. So it's going forward with our support, obviously.
Thank you very much. A lot of enthusiasm on this one. We'll see what the public has to say at public hearing. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Next item, item 8, is proposed sign bylaw amendments to permit third-party billboard signs. The recommendation from staff is that Council give first, second, and third readings to City of Coquitlam Sign Amendment Bylaw number 4239.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Sikora. Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to get some clarification. Attachment 3 is the exact wording of the bylaw. And on the facing page in my booklet, anyway, attachment 2 shows a map of southwest Coquitlam with 3 dots where signage could potentially go. Now, the attachment 3, the actual wording of the bylaw does talk about distances where signs would be allowed on Barnett Highway, Lougheed Highway, I believe it talks about there as well. Yes, and but I'd like clarification on this. Do these distances actually have the effect of precluding the establishment of any signs at these locations or anywhere except at the 3 locations indicated on the map on attachment 2?
Through the chair, that's a very good question, and that's indeed what they are. They're we trying to set out criteria, measurable criteria that would sort of determine and put boundaries on the potential locations for these types of signs. It's all based on the concept of auto-oriented, high visibility, high traffic areas, and so by putting in those sorts of criteria, those separation and offset distances, it in a sense precludes it along the Barnett Highway corridor, and in particular at the Pine Tree or Lougheed Barnett intersection. The other thing I should just clarify on the attachment 2, that's not to say it's not a treasure map that says those red dots is where the signs shall go and only go. It's the possible locations. Those locations would meet the combination of criteria along the Lougheed and Trans-Canada Highway. So it depends what application comes in first, and that would then sort of set in motion what could come after that.
Okay, when I first started hearing about the possibility of these bright video signs being allowed, I had some concerns about their ability to distract drivers. And I did a lot of research into the area and found out that there's actually, while drivers tend to look at them for a slightly longer period of time, there's no associated increase in any sort of danger or trouble, accidents, anything like that. And that, combined with my general support of allowing some freedom of expression in this area, will lead me to support this bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a slightly different point of view. I have always been opposed to the idea of having billboards in our community. I think it's one of those good aspects of our community that we don't currently have that kind of billboard third-party advertising. And it troubles me that we're heading down this path. I recognize that there are perhaps some legal reasons why we may opt to do this, and I'm still troubled by it. It's not just the distraction. I think the distraction is an issue. If anyone's going to pay a good amount of money to have an ad that no one will look at because they're driving, it's somewhat counterintuitive, and there are times when I've caught myself actually looking over at an ad on a billboard and realizing the purpose of that ad is to make it so I look away from the road as a driver. That's its purpose. It can't have any other purpose. Of course, it undoubtedly is trying to attract the passengers, but in so many cases along the Highway 1, these are single-occupant vehicles, or occupant vehicles with only one occupant in them. And so but it's not just the distraction. I believe these are they're a blight. They are they are meant to take away from the natural beauty of your community, or to take away from the functional aspects of your community. We have buildings, and the buildings have signage in order to promote the business inside the building. The idea of a third-party sign is to be a big newspaper or a big advertising flyer standing in the sky, and I disagree with that. I don't like it, and I'm opposed to this. I've expressed those reservations before and to council, and I want to, and I fully understand those who would feel that this is something that's a freedom of expression. I don't agree. I think that businesses have every right to express themselves as everyone else does. The Charter of Rights doesn't say you get to express yourself in a 10-meter by 20-meter format on the side of the highway, or in this case, 6-meter by 8-meter format on the side of the highway. And if in fact it's about freedom of expression, then I'd suggest we put them someplace where the traffic isn't traveling at 90 kilometers an hour, because it would allow people, it would make it more forgiving of people who actually do as the advertisers are hoping they do, and look away from the road and look up to the sign. If they're perhaps stopped at a red light in some place, that's where we ought to be putting them, rather than putting them on the side of the highway. So the city gets no benefit from these ones. These are the railway, combined with an outdoor advertising company, trying to capitalize on their location next to such a high-traffic route. And I don't think we should be facilitating that mechanism. Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, I'm fine. I don't like them. I find that they're there for one purpose, and that's to catch the driver's attention when they're driving. I think it's interesting that we've just brought in a ban on cell phones, or on handheld phones. I recently heard talk from the Association of Police Chiefs that they want an outright ban now on cell phones in the cars because they feel that the current ban doesn't go far enough. I'd be very curious to know what they think of signs flashing in your face as you're driving down the highway and near bridges. I think they're distractions. I don't think that they add to the city. I understand the need for businesses to advertise, but I think that they have other avenues that don't involve placing large signs beside our roadways. I also have concerns about who regulates the content. I'm assuming, I don't know if they come under the same rules as, say, newspaper advertising or TV advertising. So, I don't know if there's bans on what you can advertise. For example, can you have cigarette advertising? I don't know. I don't think you can, but I don't know who regulates the content, given they're not on city land. So I would be concerned about what forms of advertising could be placed there. If it were a city billboard, we'd be able to use it for some community use. I don't think that that's contemplated here. I think it's truly a third-party private enterprise, and it's geared at catching the attention of drivers.
Thank you. Councillor Asmundson.
Well, thank you very much. This has been on our agenda since 2009 when the people applied for 18 tri-vision signs. That's your signs that change slowly from 3 and rotate. And at that time, myself and council didn't like it, didn't want to deal with it. But there was a court case in Ontario that has mandated that we don't have a choice. We cannot outright ban the signs. And since 2009, we've dealt with this, talked about it in different ways. And our staff and our legal division have told us at this point in time with this report, this is our best option on reducing the number of signs by going to an electronic sign and still allowing that expression of advertising that was guaranteed these businesses in the courts. So what we're trying to do, and what staff is balancing the desires of business to advertise their products in the general public manner that is not being met at this time while recognizing the public's concern about visual pollution. And so we're looking at only permitting the large video scene that you see in New Westminster. There would be less of them, probably 3 rather than 18 along the highway. And the ones along there are far crisper and cleaner ads. Now, I drive for a living, and I could say that, there's many things that can distract a driver in driving, and I don't see these billboards as being a distraction or causing accidents. There's no stats anywhere that I've researched and looked in that's proved any of that. But we do not have a choice, really, in this matter, unless we want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, of taxpayers' dollars, in legal fees and expenses, because these companies will take us to court if we don't deal with this issue. And they've told us that. They've been waiting since 2009 for a decision from this council, and that's been a long time. That's 4 years. And if we want to go that route where the mayor's talking about, we know the precedents in law that's been settled already in court. And I don't think we're going to be able to overturn that. And you're going to spend a lot of money on that. So I think this is the best way for us to go. And I think it balances those two issues. Is all the public going to be happy? Am I happy with it? No. My initial response when we brought this forward was not to have them at all. But we also have to listen to and deal with the advice that staff have brought forward to us and the court cases and balance those issues out. And this is what we've come up as the best balanced option that we can do with this sign bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Skora.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You're correct. It's been going on since about 2009, and I've had calls from the sign companies that are saying, when is something going to happen? When are you going to make a decision? And I'll tell you, stalling is something that I don't like, stalling people. I, for one, believe in action, never mind stalling. Every government wants to stall things as long as they can. The one thing that, if this comes up to where 5-10 years down the road, that these signs have created tremendous amount of accidents and have had problems, then maybe ICBC will take some action or somebody else will. But while we are mandated to see that these signs are allowed in our city, we have no other choice but allow them. So with me, it's very, very simple. I see other signs in other cities, and I don't think that it distracts me while I'm driving in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, it draws the attention, of course it will. Otherwise, the advertising company wouldn't want to advertise. But certainly, I, for one, like to see what's going to happen, what the signs are going to look like, and great, I know that the city is not going to get any benefits, financial benefits by it, but we can't help but have everything in our city that's a benefit to the city, that somehow everybody comes into the city, whatever they do, there's some kind of financial benefit to the city. There's none in this case, and it's fine. So I'm going to support this. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I value the advice of our staff, and I always treat it very carefully. But I think the important message in this staff report is in the first sentence of the conclusion. It says, permitting third-party signage in Coquitlam is a sensitive issue that will visually shape the form and character of the city. That's absolutely true. It'll shape the form and character of the city, and it will shape it in a way that I don't like, and I don't believe any of my neighbors like, and I'm not even sure the people driving by on Highway 1 will like. It steps us back many years. We can all remember, you're not all as old as me, but many of us can remember driving down the highway, billboard after billboard after billboard, and you could hardly see a thing. Ogden Nash said it. I think that I shall never see a billboard lovely as a tree. In fact, unless the billboards fall, I'll never see a tree at all. So obviously I'm not supporting this. I think in rejecting this, we have a court case in Ontario. We have advertisers who have, I believe, suggested that we better go along or they'll sue us or there'll be all kinds of terrible consequences. Well, I think it's for us to send a clear message to the advertisers. We speak for the people of the city of Coquitlam, and I don't believe the people of the city of Coquitlam want these billboards. I think the advertisers may challenge us. I think they do that at their peril, because then they're saying that their opinion is more important than the opinions of the people that many of them are trying to sell to. I've thought about this really carefully. I hope the advertisers will think very carefully too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other speakers. Question is the first three readings. All in favor? Opposed? The motion fails with Councillor Hodge, Nicholson, Reid, and Mayor Stewart opposed.
Next item, item 9, concerns a citywide official community plan and zoning bylaw amendment application for 1120 Falcon Drive and 2565 Runnel Drive. Recommendation from staff is that Council defer consideration of OCP amendment application and zoning amendment application pertaining to these two addresses until the city centre area plan update is complete.
Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you very much on this important question. On page 2 of the report, the executive summary, the last paragraph is quite striking to me. In the event that council is prepared to consider the applications, council should direct staff to da-da-da. However, in this case, staff advised that the impact on staff resources will be significant and that a one-off land use change in this area in advance of the city centre area plan process could be problematic. Therefore, staff will need to report back to council to confirm a realignment of resources and priorities regarding the city centre and to fully explore the impact of this realignment on city government, city departments, the development industry, and other agencies, all of which do not include this phase of the city centre in their current priorities. I don't think there's anything that's come before us in the 2 years that I've been on council that has such a import of danger. Mr. Robinson, don't go there. Was it the robot? This really seems, and I'm wondering if the general manager could elaborate on what it would mean by realignment of resources. If resources have to be realigned, what won't get done? Or does this imply that we're going to have to spend extra money to get this done as well as everything else? So are those the options? Really, if we do this, there's some stuff that we've already proved and it's gone through lots of processes that won't get done, or we'll have to spend extra money to get it all done.
Your Worship, it's more the former. We have a current work program in our department. We're trying to wrap up for 2013. We won't get to all of it, and some will slide over into 2014. We have a number of items in 2014. We have the corporate business plan as well. So we're really expressing here in that paragraph is, and certainly the staff will take council instruction. If this application is to be brought forward, what we're suggesting is we would need then to go back, look at our work program, and what items could be set aside for right now, so we could devote the staff resources we have within current budgets to look at this application, but it's also the broader area. And I guess that's the second part of it. Is coming out of our experience with Coquitlam, even though we have the benefit of the TDS, that gives us a broader framework there. What we're finding with a number of the development applications, like they're significant. They're large parcels are being assembled, which is great. Some really exciting developments being proposed, but the implications and ramifications of all that, you look at a neighborhood level, it takes a lot of time to assess. And it's not just from the planning, development planning side, but the other areas of the organization as well, the liaison discussion with transportation planning, with utilities, parks, and so on and so forth. So, and that's what the section in that paragraph gets to. It's not just, again, just planning staff that are being impacted. It's drawing on other staff across the organization to help with that. So what we're trying to do is just trying to provide some background on this. We would like to get to the city center area plan later next year, because we've got some other projects we think are of higher priority, and we're getting equal pressure on them too, and they need to be undertaken. But the application, in our view, really needs to await that broader look, as opposed to doing as a one-off for a single project at the corner of Runnels and Falcon.
Okay. Well, you mentioned in your answer the transit-oriented development strategy, TDS, that we put a fair bit of time and effort into last year, that was put in place in Lougheed Mall area, Coquitlam area, and City Centre area, supposedly to facilitate with development associated with rapid transit, the Evergreen line. And I've got a map here that was actually distributed at another meeting last week that shows where the TDS areas are, and the city center TDS is clearly encompasses the area where this application is located. So how is it that we can have a policy that a TDS policy that's designed to facilitate the more rapid development of areas that are going to be positively impacted by the Evergreen line? How can we have that in place and at the same time say we're not ready for this particular one or any of them in the city center at this stage? While at the same time we are ready in Coquitlam and in Lougheed, and indeed in the Coquitlam we're doing a lot of area under the TDS policy. So I'd understand why we're ready to go and take advantage. And we've heard that a lot. We've heard that from the mayor. We've heard that from planning staff. We've heard that from outsiders that have come in here, that you've got to be ready to take advantage of the opportunities presented by the coming of the Evergreen line. And we've been pretty proud of how quickly we've responded, in the Coquitlam area especially. But yet here we're saying no, even though it's in the TDS, even though it's less than a 5-minute walk from, maybe a 5-minute walk from the Port Moody Ioko station there, and that we're not ready here. So can you explain that? Thank you.
Your Worship, that's a very fair question. And certainly, but recall, though, the TDS, the Transit-Oriented Development Strategy, looked at the entire Evergreen SkyTrain corridor, from the Lougheed station right up to the Evergreen station just across the way here. So it was, and that was necessary because it's a comprehensive, from one end of the corridor to the other. But even within that corridor, it identified the station areas, core areas, shoulder areas. But even amongst those areas that were identified, there is some prioritization that was given. I think there was a realization that we couldn't go on all fronts all at once. And so if you notice in the report, I think it's on the top of page 4, like we're trying to be fair, to the proponent and their proposal coming forward. We've gone through in that table, and it actually starts over on the prior page, in citing from the various areas in the official community plan and in the TDS document what we feel are policy references that had been reviewed with council before. They're there sort of as reference, as guidance in dealing with this one. And in that area, you may recall that down at the west end of the Brunette Highway corridor, it was just felt it was a little premature right now to go ahead with something significant and drastic. It did very well in time, may make perfect sense there, but given what's happening next door in Port Moody, and there's, I think even the uncertainty is increasing there of late. The thought and the priority in the TDS was to allow for the planning processes in that end of the corridor before significant development applications happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Well, we dealt with this a year ago or earlier this year, and I don't like turning it down again because it's one of my favorite developers. You build a good product, and what you've done I really like. But this is premature, and I really thought that we'd sort of got this settled. What upsets me about this is that I would really like you to build something in my community, and I'd really like you to build something on that site, but this is the wrong time. We went through this in that we have not completed well, we certainly haven't even started the OCP plan, with which we have to do the change of plan. But since you were here last time, we have had to take the Coquitlam area and overlay another plan because developers were coming in fast and furious. And we had some other developments that we've just had to say go away until we can sit down and get that all done. We also have the area now further down to the lower Lougheed area, which has to, and I don't even know if you've got the letters out yet, that it's going to have to be looked at now because it's time, and the time isn't our time. It's time now that we waited for 25 years for the Evergreen line to get here. Now it's here, and now we're trying to catch up with a lot of the zoning, and some of the zoning you can't contemplate what you want to put there until the time is right and the market's right and you do all the things that you have to do. Port Moody on this particular piece of property plays a big part too. They're our neighbor, and we will have to be sensitive to what they want to build on our borders, as well as we want to build the very highest and best use that we can have. So I am a bit concerned that you're back in with this. I think Brad and I had a conversation about, can you put up a tilt up, something that it's not going to really hurt to take down in 5 years or 10 years when we're ready for you, and then go into something really big and lovely. And as well, and most importantly, we haven't heard from that neighborhood. And I think a lot of folks in that neighborhood, when I'm out and about, realize that their neighborhood is going to become probably just as dense as the downtown corridor, with tall high-rises and things like that, and maybe some amenity spaces as well in that part of the city. So you're premature, you're great builders, and I hope you will stick around in our city, but at this time, I just can't support this. I have to defer this. I do not even have the staff, not counting this application, but I think we're pretty tight for doing all the other things we have to do along this line right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much. You know, this won't be the first time that we've gone to a development that the planning department was opposed to. Far from it. In my 40 years, it's been done many times. This land has been empty for many, many years. And I know that there's some talk that, oh, it might be one day an Evergreen line stationed there at Falcon. Well, that's a block away from this development, and I don't think they'll ever, the provincial government spend $18 to $20 million for Evergreen line station. They never funded any other station, so why this one all of a sudden? But and I know that Port Moody, I mean, what has this development got to do with Port Moody? It's quite a ways away. Even the upper land towards Port Moody is about a 18 to 24% grade. So how would you even make any roads through there? No way. But, you know, the fact is that, you know, we can say until something happens, we can't do certain things. Well, you know what? 3 years ago, the mayor passed a notice of motion on dedicating parks. It was unanimous. What has happened? You know,
Councillor Sikora,
no, but you know what, Mayor? You should, let me just finish. And you should be, for one, that you're the chief executive officer, should say to the staff, it was unanimously passed, when can we see some action on this? But I haven't heard, you haven't heard, it's been stalled.
As you know, we've heard, it's actually the Parks Department that does that. It's the Planning Department.
I don't know what is Parks Department, whatever it is. But to me, it's 3 years. And matter of fact, very, very soon, in another month or so, it'll be 4 years. And it might be even 6 years or 7 years. Because you're not, there's no will, Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Sikora, I wonder if you could get back to the item we're on.
The next thing that I served a notice of motion on was monster houses. You know what? The candidates are going door knock and ask each one of them. Guess what's the issue, big issue? Monster houses in our communities. I haven't seen any movement on it. You know, I mean, I wonder how long a notice of motion that's passed unanimously by this council has to wait for something to happen. And I'd like to get that answer sometime, somewhere, either from you, Mayor, or from the staff, or from somebody. I mean, you know, people.
Well, I will answer you if you like.
People elected me to do a job for them in the city. I can't do a job for them, but I can get some answers.
Well, I will give you an answer if you like.
Mayor, can I finish?
Well, you asked me to answer.
Have I got the floor?
Okay, I won't answer.
Thank you very much. Okay, so very, very simple. On this development, it's a nice development. There's nothing eyesore about it. It's not a high density to where somebody will be looking on a 24th or 25th floor or whatever it is. It's a low density kind of development. In that area, I think it's badly, badly needed. And I can't see why we should be stalling it. It's not a big deal. That's a $200 million job to where it takes a lot of studies and a lot of things that we must do. This is a small little development. And let's get on with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Asmundson.
Well, thank you. I'm going to be disagreeing with staff on this on their position on this application, but I do have we're talking about the area plan and what you want to do first prior to this project going ahead, and that's not really, I think, scheduled for fourth quarter of 2014, so it really wouldn't be up and running till 2015, which would take approximately a year to complete that plan, which would take it that you wouldn't be able to saying to these people, you wouldn't be able to look at their application until at least 2016 for this property, which at that time, after all the planning, could be exactly the same type of development that they're putting there. Is that a rough and basic idea of the timeline?
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Worship. Ideally, yes, you'd want to have the neighborhood plan fully complete, but it's a dynamic world. The application could be received before it's completed. What we'd like to do is get started with the area plan update, and that's slated for the latter part of 2014. Our neighborhood planning processes have been tightened up and become more efficient in recent years, so hopefully that would be the case here. So it could be 2015 before the application could be submitted under that model, and but that wouldn't preclude the proponent talking with staff. There no doubt be a neighborhood plan advisory group or committee or something like that. They could participate that way, so we kept abreast of the process and an opportunity for them to input as well. So.
And when I look at the TDS that we just went through and we advanced that, 4 projects along the line, as Councillor O'Neill put out. We have the core area and the shoulder area. But this development would fit in the shoulder area regardless. And when we talk about Coquitlam Plaza and the shoulder areas around, we're doing transitional housing of 5-6-story townhousing type building to make that transition to. So this would still fit, even under TDS's guidelines, that transitional housing type from potentially higher if we ever had a station at Falcon. The second point is that when you look at this project and where it's proposed, as Councillor Score pointed out, to the west is existing townhousing up a slope, which is housing. To the south is housing again. You have commercial on the south side and the west side, but you're not making a great deviation on this block from the housing that's already there. This would complete that block of housing there. So it fits within it. The proposal is also talking about ground floor commercial uses for what might be a coffee shop, a bakery, or whatever, putting some stuff on the corner. So it's a mixed building. It's not all residential. It's commercial and residential. So I've had concerns. I was one of the first concerns about the planning process. But I think it was Councillor O'Neill that pointed out during that discussion, we had talks that the TDS, this is in the shoulder, regardless if we got a station at Falcon or not, it's still in the same area. The same type of planning principles and development you wouldn't put a 15-story high-rise. And I think if you talk about the neighbors in the consultation, because I think the first thing this proponent wants to do is be allowed to go out for 879 public consultation. That's not on the report in front of us tonight, so I guess we have to deal with staff's objections. And if that doesn't get, then if it gets passed, you would bring back their recommendation for 879. Is that correct?
Your Worship, yes, essentially, if Council wishes to entertain and bring forward this proposal, we would need that direction. And then we come back and with a follow-up report indicate how that could be accommodated, and there might be some options around that. And then also be, I imagine, we'd set out a proposed 879 consultation process.
And thank you. That helps out. And, you know, we have gone against staff's direction. I think the last one was something that's dear to Councillor Reid's heart, was Fraser Mills wasn't supported by staff. But it has now been put in there, and we're still waiting for development. I think it's going to happen shortly. But I think this development would be happening a lot sooner and completed that piece of land. I think Councillor Sikora has stated in his experience that this has sat vacant for a long time. I would be concerned and not supporting this if they were asking for a 10 or 15-story high-rise. I don't think that would fit within that area. I think the public would be greatly against it, but I think that a 5-story building, 4 of residential, 1 of commercial, and especially as Councillor Sikora pointed out, the slope that you have from the townhouses above reduces its height and impact to them. So I'm in support of this moving forward, and I understand the need to plan, but when I look at sometimes unique one-offs, this to me is a unique one-off situation. And, you know, Ms. Maxwell, all the years I've been here with you, I have supported planning and their planning plans. And I don't take it lightly when I suggest that we need to do a one-off on it. But I do think this one here, and I got to thank the proponent for the level of detail of studies that they've done, because generally when we get an OCP amendment, it's far less detailed, far less studies and information presented to staff. But I think they've gone a lot further and invested a lot more in providing the information of traffic, the other issues in the area, and done some outreach in the community. So I will not support staff's recommendation, and I would support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll try not to repeat a great deal of what's already been said. I do support staff's recommendation. I think it's well-founded. I'd like to comment just on the paragraph at the bottom of page 2 was mentioned by one of my colleagues as being surprising in that we don't often see this much. These are the consequences. This is the sort of doom and gloom perils of the future. And that's true. But we don't often see staff recommending against something that's being put forward by a proponent. It's much more common for me to be sitting here saying, you're recommending this, Mr. McIntyre, and I see 14 variances and the parking doesn't fit and there are all these problems and yet you're recommending it. So when staff says, effectively, we don't recommend this, we think it's premature, they've given me lots of solid reasons why it's premature, and then they've gone beyond that to say, nonetheless, if you don't agree with what the recommendation is, this is what you're faced with. And I know that we have put our staff to lots and lots of arduous work, and we've changed their priorities here and there, and sometimes we've just added them. We don't take anything away. And I'm not prepared to do that. And I'm not prepared to go against their recommendation this time. I've already done it once this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, you know, I'm struggling with this one because, you know, I think Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Asmussen make some really valid concerns or raise some, you know, valid comment, and I think that Councillor Nicholson does as well. And I find myself looking at this and saying, you know, this is a development that I want to approve. I think that you know, that the developer has worked hard. They've made some changes, which I appreciate. I certainly appreciate their confidence in wanting to build in Coquitlam and to do a quality project. But and I'm certainly anxious to see this land develop because, you know, there's nothing happened there, and it'd be nice to get some development there. But I want to see a good project. I want to see something that's great. And to me, to be great, it has to be an absolute perfect fit in that neighborhood as best we can. And I don't know how we can do that in advance of having a neighborhood plan in place. You know, we heard, I was at the all candidates meeting last week, and I heard the concerns of some people in the Coquitlam area that said that, well, they understand why we've done the TDS, that they still feel that should not be done in the absence of a proper neighborhood plan. And I know that why we did it, and I supported that, but in the back of my eye, I still think that the people in this area need to have a neighborhood plan in place before we go and do a one-off. I'm concerned certainly about the paragraph at the bottom of page 2. I'm also worried about the drain on staff if we set off in another direction to manage the other projects we have and to do those properly, and then to go and set off in another area of the city that they're not planning to address, and certainly until next year. So I'd like to see us go through the process. Let's have the proper neighborhood plan in place, and then let's see if this fits with where we're going, and I hope that developer will, and I know the challenges of delays and everything, but I think we only get one chance to get this right. And I'm trying to build a great city and a great community, and I want to make sure that the decisions we make fit with the long-term future of where we're going. And so I find myself on this one, agreeing with the staff recommendation to defer consideration until we can go and put this in place properly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to probably end up repeating some comments that have already been made. But I think actually Councillor Sikora made the point very well. We passed a motion a couple of years ago, well, seems like at least that, but it probably wasn't, asking staff to examine the issue of monster houses. And staff said, okay, and they put it on the pile, and then they kept pulling out the things that we'd asked for earlier, and there's lots of them. There's Fraser Mills, there's Maillardville, Low-Eat Area Plan, the transit-oriented development, the new SkyTrain station at Lincoln, which wasn't on the plan and was an enormous amount of work to develop, and then the planning around the new SkyTrain station at Lincoln, the Hazel Harper, because we've still got pressure from the Hazel Harper folks to get going on theirs, because we just did Partington, and after we finished Smiling Creek. And there's more, actually, but I won't go through them all. And as a result of all of those, we didn't get to something that Council unanimously passed because we simply don't have the resources to be able to do them all at the same time. When this last came up, one of the council members actually said, why can't we do it now? Why can't we do the planning for this now? And the answer is, well, what other plan that we're working on now would you like us to set aside? So occasionally we look at one of these one-offs and we say, is there a compelling reason? And I'm like Councillor Hodge, I want to find a way to approve this project. I think this is a really nice project. I've looked at it in great detail, and I think this one is just a beautiful, beautiful application. So what's the compelling reason why we would do it now? There was one on Foster where, for example, by miracle of miracles, and I know how hard it must have been to assemble 18 lots in a row and to have them all stay together as an assembly, that provides tremendous opportunity for the city because you can plan the whole block rather than having 3 lots and then one holdout who decided not to sell or he decided to build a new house instead, and you end up with those really somewhat messy planning processes. And so we as a council made a decision that there was a compelling reason. There was something that is hard to achieve, 18-lot assembly, and so there was a compelling reason to have a look at it outside of the normal process. I can't find the compelling reason because I do want to find a way to. I did want to find a way to approve this. So I'm of the opinion that I have to support the staff recommendation because obviously I can't turn to staff and say, add this to your work and make it the highest priority, because we already said that with several other items that we made the highest priority. Oh, heritage revitalization. So we've got all kinds of those kinds of issues as a city. I'm going to have to support the staff recommendation. No other speakers. The motion is the staff recommendation to defer consideration of the OCP amendment. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is opposed by Councillor Sikora, Asmundson, and O'Neill. The motion carries.
Your Worship, if I could.
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you for your indulgence. I know it's difficult when an application comes forward. It's something different for that area. It's not another tire shop or little corner plaza. So I think there is opportunity there. I will take back to staff. We'll talk about the discussion tonight. We want to make sure that the city center area plan doesn't fall off the agenda. So I'll give you that assurance. And also, if I could, Your Worship, neither has the Monster Homes piece either. We've got a report that's coming through. There will be a report to council before the end of the year. We've been focusing our current efforts on, aside from the other planning matters, but also liquor licensing policy piece too. There's some urgency getting that back to council before the end of the year too. So we are chipping away at it. Just I
forgot the liquor license policy, and I also forgot Riverview. So
thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Item 10 is the Metro Vancouver Board and Brief for their meeting of September 27th. Our 2 Metro Vancouver Board representatives are available to respond to questions, and the recommendation is to receive the brief for information.
Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Your Worship, that's the last formal item on this agenda.
I'll let you all know, of course, in only 5 days we're going to go to the polls, and there's actually a couple of opportunities in the advance polls. Check the city's webpage for that, but Saturday is election day. We have 2 vacancies on council here, represented by the 2 empty seats. Please do your research. Let's let democracy work the way it's supposed to work, and get out and please everybody vote. Thank you.
A motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn would be in order. Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.